Google's Public Sector Summit. I am Heather Sheston, Director of Public Sector over at SADA, and joining me today is Jeff Brown, Google Workspace Manager for Public Sector at Google Cloud.
Heather, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's so great to see you again, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. So, Jeff, you and I go way back. I know our working relationship started back when we were launching the workspace deployment at the state of Arizona. And throughout the past couple of years after Arizona, we worked on multiple workspace deployments in the public sector. And so I'm super excited to talk today about how Workspace has become this gateway to innovation, specifically in the government vertical, and definitely looking forward to getting your input and your insights from Google's perspective on this as well. So I think if we're looking at a workspace deployment, the first thing I think when SADA and Google are going in and talking to their customers about this, the one thing we tell them to start with is mail, calendar, and contacts. Right? It's easy. It's just mail, calendar, and contacts. And although this can be the simplest thing to start with, it can also create a barrier to change. And so I'm curious, from the Google perspective, why do you think that is?
Yeah, the barrier. First, you mentioned something, Heather, I have to point out, is like we've known each other for 7 years. And when you were at the state of Arizona, you were part of the public information office, which is so critical and so important because you're the voice, so to speak, you and the team, right, about how and why this decision from governor down and, the consolidation, cost savings, and all the benefits. So I think that's a really important thing to point out. That's how we met. And then we've done West Virginia and many others. And so let me answer the question, barrier. What's interesting about this is that for whatever reason, it just tends to still be a barrier. And what does that mean? It means individuals have used, right, a solution for decades. And so thinking about, this is really Google's used in education. And yes, I use you for my personal type of collaboration and email. They just tend to not think like, well, for whatever reason, we can't get past change management. I've been using this for decades. And so really when you break it down to three things, right, it's just mail, it's just calendar, and it's just contacts. And once I think individuals and public organizations realize that and they understand, let's just look at this for what it is. It's just mail, calendar, and contacts. And if we can just start there from the minimum, and it's all remote, it's all 100% browser-based, and it doesn't matter what operating system you have, it doesn't matter what browser you're on. And once you get past that first initial, and people take a deep breath and realize, I can get my job done. I can still do Microsoft compatibility. This isn't as big of a paramount type of shift that we expected. And that barrier just gets reduced. And then, right, you can go talk about creativity. Then you can go talk about some amazing things that you can go change and make better, maybe a little bit more efficient than what they're currently doing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting when I was on site doing the deployment in person at Arizona, and even when we've talked with other government customers, I think it's really fun to talk to people who are sort of unfazed by this change. Like they're using Gmail or, Google Workspace in some capacity in their personal life. So the user interface is very familiar with them. It's not such a huge change. And then I think even down to the people that, might have been struggling a little bit. And then they're like, well, I went home last night and, my kids use Google Workspace in school. And so they were able to help me learn a little bit more about it, making that change a little bit easier for them. So I do think one of the key components, and you touched on this, so I want to kind of come back to it, but that we always push really hard with our customers is that change management piece. So talking about, what this is going to look like from an executive leadership perspective all the way down to an end user's perspective by utilizing very strategic communications and putting together a really robust training plan so that the end users are getting trained on it, executives are getting white glove treatment. And I think this is like the biggest piece when we're looking at making this change that has the biggest impact in getting over the hurdle for mail, calendar, and contacts. And I'm curious what you guys see from your side and if you think that's the same thing.
Yeah, I would. So I love this question. And I think here's why. It's kind of a differentiator. Is if you think about what you just said, change management, how do I train? How do I deploy? How do I migrate? How do I get, tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands potentially of users to go from one platform to the other? The differentiation, I think, for What you look at Workspace is, and I'll give you great examples. Arizona does this, Iowa does this, Colorado does this. Do you know how they train, new users coming in, even though they've been, adopted for years? Is they use things like Google Classroom, they use forums, they use sites, they actually use things that are in Workspace to train about Workspace, and they set all these up. And I think in the very initial phase of what's so important to potential customers thinking of making the switch is it's by role and it's by department. And I think when people go, wait, hold on, if you can answer these two questions by individual, why are we doing this and what's in it for me? Whether I'm an executive admin, I'm frontline, I'm healthcare, right? I'm in finance, I'm a power user in Excel. Like think of all the different agencies, they all do different things. And then you have roles and they all do different things. And if you can train through, organizations and partners, which we 100% count on, such as SADA, like that's exactly what they do. Make it successful because you've done this hundreds and hundreds of times, and make it very specific. I'm going to train by role and I'm going to train by agency. That's what makes sense to me as the user. And you answer those two questions, I'm going to have a much, much higher percentage of being successful.
Right, exactly. And I think even we noticed too, at some point, we had kind of a beginner training and, assuming that maybe folks, this would be all new to them. And we quickly realized that we needed even another level, which is like an intermediate training, because people were so used to the Workspace platform from their personal life that they kind of already had a great base to start off of. And that just made it all the more easy for them. But they wanted to learn a little bit more of maybe like getting into the tools in a little bit more depth on their personal and professional life. So I completely agree with you. And I think you touched on a really significant piece as part of the change management, because I know from SADA's perspective, and I would say for Google as well, the goal when we're deploying Workspace is one, to maximize on the investment that our government customers are making, and also to make sure that they're fully utilizing all of the tools that are available within this suite. And so you touched on Google Classroom, which I think is a really big piece for us, because I know I've worked internally at SADA with our change management group to put together some ongoing training where our government customers can utilize that in Google Classroom. It's available to them, and they can take that, they can train their users, they can become familiar and put other stuff outside of Workspace training in there. And so, I'd love to talk more about how we, Google and SADA, are working together to kind of push that continued investment in Workspace. What are you seeing from your perspective?
Yeah, two big areas there. I don't know why I'm on to numbers today, but two big areas, right? And Classroom is absolutely, definitely top three. And for those, for our summit attendees listening, think of K through 12s in higher ed, Google Classroom, so prevalent. And so when the pandemic happened and everybody's obviously working remote, it's like, how do you do new hire training? How do you do cyber training, ethics training? You got me, right? So think of the trainings you used to do in classroom, conference rooms. And so how do you do that now? Or managing, how about this? There are tons of stories with managers managing. I've got 20 or 30 or 40 individuals that I manage. What if I just use Classroom to just manage a weekly schedule for them? I need you to take this assignment and you have these task flows. I need you to complete, right, this, these different items throughout the week, and just be able to see when Heather came in, when she went into the document, did she complete it? Did she take the training, watch the video with an amazing dashboard? And I think the more and more we can encompass like a template driven for change management and migration within Classroom, because it's so traditionally about, right, teacher to student. Well, how about Classroom in just very structured ways? I have to do taser training. I have to do smoke jump training. I have to do CASA training, like the example I gave in Iowa. This is how they train individuals not working for the state that are volunteers about how they help these individuals go through the court process. Templatize that and then give it to the public sector community, and then rinse and repeat for all the other ones. That's a really big, massive one. The other one quickly here is AppSheet. And AppSheet is one of that low code, right-hand quadrant type of solutions that Google acquired a year plus ago that is so embedded in Workspace. And that answers the question of, I'm not IT, I'm a business process owner. I have an idea of what's happening in my agency and I just want to go fix a problem. And so how about a very low code, type in questions, type in what I'm trying to do, and then have this application. I know it sounds like an easy button, but have this application now go pre-built it for you. And I'm seeing those two things becoming more and more prevalent, right? As I see more and more governments adopt this solution.
Yeah, for sure. I know we've definitely seen a lot of those app sheet solutions in the government space too. And we're really trying to create kind of those repeatable solutions, which we can talk a little bit more about in just a couple of seconds. But I kind of want to stay on this track because I think, I feel like I can say this because I've worked in government space for many years, and you're super familiar with it. But I think a thing that we always run into with our government customers and very respectfully is the budgets and the ability to be able to pay for multiple licensing types. And I'm speaking about this because I think if you're looking at the Workspace platform and the robust amount of tools that are available in it, how do we take this investment, their investment with Workspace, and look at what else they might currently be paying for that could now be used inside of Workspace. And a favorite example of mine, and not just because I led it at Arizona, is kind of looking at that video conferencing piece, which has been huge over the past 2 years or so. But when we were taking a holistic look across the state at how many different tools were being purchased, how many different licenses were being purchased for them, and knowing that this was something that was available within our Workspace platform utilizing Google Meet, we really wanted to make that kind of our next step. So we deployed Mail, Calendar, and Contacts, and next step is looking at these licenses that we had deployed and how do we start to deprecate some of those licenses and get a better hold on the budgeting for those and the management of those tools. And I'm sure you're seeing that from some other pieces within the Workspace platform with other customers as well.
100%. And I'll hate to say this, but it's actually frustrating sometimes because I won't pick on Arizona, but here's this whole platform and it includes things like video conferencing, they'll adopt mail calendar contacts. And then you're like, seriously, it took you a year and a half to actually then use the video conferencing that's so well used. It has breakout rooms, hand raising, Q&A, but it's the way sometimes it works and we get it in. Sometimes states, of course, have a 2 to 3 year payment structure for what they're using. Another great example, mobile device management, fantastic solution in Workspace, but they're using 3 or 4 other solutions, or they're using things like gateway barrier, anti-spam, right? Gateway security, data loss preventions. Oh, wait, that's included in Workspace? Yes. And so, another deep breath, but I've done that twice. Start with the mail, calendar, contacts. And then, yes, you're right. Just deprecate or start picking off these things that make sense because there really is a wide breadth of solutions in Workspace. And so that's typically how it happens. And so exactly, it's frustrating to me because I just want everybody to kind of maybe just do everything at once. And obviously that can be a little bit too much. Take it in faith, take it in faith.
I agree. And I think from the executive space too, we've seen a lot of interest in more adoption with Google Drive, moving things off of, on-prem storage space over to Google Drive and kind of maximizing on that space. And then also Google Forms, which is a personal favorite of mine. But I feel like this is the thing that gets people really excited about Google Workspace. And there are other form platforms that I think government has invested in. And a lot of that can be done utilizing Google Forms. And I feel like that's like the thing that people are like, this is, fun. And we get to go in here and create new stuff. And it's super easy to use. And it's already included with their licenses.
And may I add, very secure data loss prevention, who can edit, comment, access, give it to them for a week and all that. To walk you through a form, everybody, if you're listening, it's just do this. Think of a spreadsheet, right? But how do you collect all the information? Put it in a Google form. You fill out all the information, one click, puts into a spreadsheet, another click, puts into Explore feature, which then you can do all these amazing graphics and have some machine learning built in and then connect it to BigQuery and oh my. So just from one simple form, if you heard me, you can go to Sheets, you can go to Dashboards, you can go to BigQuery, all that data, all that information. It really is. It is something that I think any user can use. You don't have to be a programmer. You don't have to code in order to really, take advantage of some of the power of the solutions.
Agreed. So the last thing I want to touch on, because we talked about capitalizing on this investment, utilizing the applications that are available in Workspace. But I think as we're taking this holistic approach to modernizing technology in government, one of the things that SADA has worked really hard on is creating solutions that tie into Workspace. So our Gov customers have invested in Workspace licenses, but they need maybe a solution that's a little bit more robust. And so us building solutions for them that can help them with, I know a particular one that we've been working a lot on, and in conjunction with you, Jeff, specifically, is our virtual booking application. So this is an online booking application tool that is deployed to the agencies. It allows citizens to very seamlessly go online, book an application at a time that is convenient for them, that an employee at the agency is available, upload documents, upload forms, pictures, driver's license, anything like that that they might need to submit in order to get that appointment scheduled. But then also that tool on the back end ties into those employees' calendars, their mailboxes, and then also Drive to store those forms and whatnot. So I think we're seeing a lot of that innovation coming on the heels of investments in that workspace platform. And I know you've got a couple of examples of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said was like, I work for the state, city, county, or education. Of course, I want to help my constituents. This is my job, regardless of what agency. And what you basically just said is, if we can make it as simple as possible for you to engage with that constituent for your job role, why wouldn't you do it? How hard is that to do currently? Versus, you're right, setting up a process. Here's appointment slots. This is what I do. I help with unemployment. I help with DMV. I help with services, permit, hunting, fishing, those type of things. And so now I can engage quicker and faster over like in a virtual appointment slot is absolutely becoming more and more prevalent. Absolutely. But I still think more, like we said, is security has to be tied in there. And so how you do all this, how that handshake happens, and the technology within Workspace is you can use our formats. I can send it to any email, name the vendor, any email carrier. It doesn't have to be Gmail, and yet I can do DLP. I can have you real time collaborate, upload resume, upload pictures, graphics, whatever it is, and have all that security built in is really important. I think that's an important handshake.
Yeah, agreed. I think with any of our government customers, the security piece can never be understated. And so that's always front of mind, I think, as we're coming up with these new solutions in conjunction with Google and deploying them out to our government sector customers. So um, I'm eternally grateful for you joining me today. I'm super excited to see where we've come on this journey in the government space with Workspace, and I'm really looking forward to see how this innovation continues as we move further down the road with Workspace and our joint ventures in the government space.
Heather, thank you. So grateful for you to have me.
For
Nice
sure.
conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. And thank you guys for attending. If you have any questions or would like any more information about our workspace deployments or any of the other tools that we've mentioned today, please visit us at sada.com.